Hello. Have you been redeemed?
Well, yes, I have, but not in the same way that Ruth was redeemed by Boaz.
Have you redeemed anyone?
That I redeemed anyone.
He doesn't know these are coming. I just make something up and I ask him a question, and he's always surprised.
I don't know that I redeemed someone, although I have led them to the Redeemer.
So what is redemption?
Redemption is taking something that has little value and giving it great value.
That's interesting. I guess I would have thought that redemption involves restoring value. I guess that, for me, that's like part of that
Well,
maybe you've been deemed before, and now you need to be redeemed.
Well, as a surprise question, it's not like I had prepared ahead of time for it, but
Of course.
what I thought of was the redemption of a coupon.
Okay.
A coupon which has very little value until it is redeemed,
Yeah.
and and that's when its true value comes out. So that's what I was thinking when you asked, what does it mean to be redeemed?
Yeah. It does make sense that it would be
Yeah.
bringing forth value out of something.
Yeah.
It seems like, redemption isn't, Ruth isn't the first time we see redemption come up. It's come up, at least, in Exodus and Numbers, I believe, where there are some laws about how to redeem things, how to redeem people, how to, what sort of redemption sacrifices are happening. And it just seems to me like redemption involves, restoration of former value.
Yeah, that certainly is a valid understanding. And it strikes me I probably wasn't speaking quite loud enough. So,
That's fine.
redeem your voice. Speak louder. And so we are in the book of Ruth today, and a very short book. Only takes you about 15 minutes to read.
Yeah.
And filled with a lot of really interesting thoughts and perspectives. And let's dig into it.
Yeah, of course. Starting out, of course, there is Elimelech, a guy who his main claim to fame is that he died, and his wife Naomi, and their two sons, Chilion and Mahlon, which their main claim to fame is they're not even named until they're after death.
Yeah. But it's important because those names are important because of where they come from and what's going to happen as a result of them dying. And Elimelech and his wife Naomi moving to Moab, and interestingly, getting wives for their sons in Moab, which breaks one of the basic ideas of the Israelites: don't intermarry with people who aren't Israelites. But we're going to see that God sees value in that.
Yeah. It's hard for me to understand because it's not seen to them as evil. It's not a curse upon them that they take these Moabite wives.
Right.
It's just a thing that they did. And, even of course for Naomi, it's a big blessing that, that she got those specific women to be her daughter-in-laws.
Turns out it's not just a blessing for Naomi; it's a blessing for all of us.
Yeah.
So they go to Moab. They marry. They're there about 10 years, and Elimelech, Mahlon, and Chilion have all passed away, and Naomi has to figure out what she's going to do. And she decides she's going to go back to Israel because Elimelech had land in Israel. Now, we're not told that as a motivating factor for Naomi moving back to Israel. But she's going to go back to Israel, and she has to give her daughter-in-laws a choice. Do they come with her, or do they return to their parents? And of course, we know that although she tells them to go back to their parents and ask that the Lord deal kindly with them, but they decide they don't want to do that. That Ruth, at least, is going to stick with her.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's interesting. It's like if mom happened to pass away, would you still go visit Mimi and Grandpa?
I would.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, so it's like that sort of thing. You know, bring in this case, you know, they didn't have kids or anything, so it's not like go bring their children over to grandma, but it's the person they've lived with for 10 years at least, so it seems like they've all had, you know, shared one house together. And you know, at least Ruth and Orpah are initially they're saying like, yeah, we'll stay with you. Like, we'll help take care of you.
and one of the interesting things embedded in that first chapter is that Naomi understood that in Israel, if a husband died, it was the responsibility of his brother to produce an heir in his name. And she says, now, I'm too old and I'm a widow, so I'm not going to be able to have another son for you to become your husband. And besides that, you know, if I did, are you going to wait long enough for him to grow up?
Do you want to wait the 18 years?
Yeah.
You know, now at this point you're 30 years old. You know, you've been married for 10 years now. You know, do you want to wait another 18 years for my next son to be an adult and marry you?
Yep. So Orpah decides, well, she'll go back to her family, and Ruth says, no, I think I'll stick with you.
Yeah. And it's interesting to me because Orpah is not, it's not seen as evil that she goes back either.
Right.
It's just like the options are make a good choice in going home or make a better choice in following to Israel.
Yep.
So I just like this because it seems like there's no bad choices.
Yeah.
There are, like, it's not that they're without sin, but it's just, it's not a curse upon them.
Right. It's just who they each make a choice.
Yeah.
And the choice was sanctioned by Naomi to do either. And I find, you know, Ruth ends up with her loyalty to Naomi, and we have a couple of verses which are often read at wedding ceremonies, which I find kind of interesting. So verses 16 of chapter 1, do not urge me to leave you or turn back from following you. For where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and my God, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. Thus may the Lord do to me, and worse, if anything but death parts you and me. That sounds really cool as a commitment between husband and wife, but this was a commitment between a daughter-in-law and her mother-in-law, and that gives a whole different bent on that level of commitment. That's that we think, well, that should be a husband to a wife, but here it is a wife to a mother-in-law.
Yeah, and to me it shows not just the daughter-in-law mother-in-law relationship, but the relationship that Ruth must have had with her husband. That you know, they must have been really in love. That Ruth is willing to say this to, you know, her husband's mother. Yeah. That there must have been a really good reason for this. You know, it shows Naomi's character is really great. She raised some great sons. Yeah. And it shows that Ruth's character is really great, that not just she chose a good husband, but she was a really good wife.
And it really flies in the face of what we commonly call mother-in-law jokes, how horrible mother-in-laws are. Would that every mother-in-law be like Naomi and every daughter-in-law be like Ruth.
Yeah. It's interesting, at the end of chapter 1, Naomi tells the people, she tells the whole town. Everyone comes to gather around and say, "Oh, Naomi, you're back." And Naomi says, "Do not call me Naomi. My name is not pleasant. My husband has died. My sons have died. My daughter-in-law has left me. I'm left only with Ruth. Call me bitterness. Call me Mara. For God has dealt bitterly with me." And she's not wrong, right? Yeah. And life has been not great. She had a big famine, so she had to abandon her house. and move to a foreign country.
Yeah.
And then in the foreign country, everyone she loved died. And Naomi asks, I went away full, and the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi when the Lord has testified against me, and the Almighty has brought calamity upon me?
Yeah. Yet they accept her, and she's going to be able to take back the land of Elimelech. And then stuff that we, to this point, haven't really understood, haven't really been told the particulars of how this happens. And we don't know whether Ruth was being ingenious or just trying to feed herself. And, I mean, whether Naomi was being ingenious, telling Ruth to go to the barley field, or whether they were just trying to feed themselves.
Yeah. But I like it because Naomi says, call me bitterness, call me Mara, change my name. And the very next verse is, so Naomi returned. And Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law. And then chapter 2 starts, now Naomi had a relative of her husband's. Just that. She has this idea that life has been bitter for her and that her name should be changed. This name changing is something that we've seen in the past. Abram gets his name changed to Abraham, Jacob to Israel.
But it doesn't stick.
Yeah.
Nowhere else, I don't think, anywhere else in the book of Ruth is Naomi called Mara.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting to me because she has a good argument. God has dealt bitterly with me. Things are not going my way. Change my name to life sucks. And I don't know, the way the story is told, life doesn't suck. She's still pleasant.
Right. And she is, I guess in one sense crafty. She understands the kinsman redeemer, which is not, those words aren't actually used here, I don't think. But the idea that, again, we mentioned that there needs to be someone to carry on Elimelech's line. And the way you do that is you go to the family, the extended family, and you present yourself, and that's what this story is all about. And so she sends Naomi sends Ruth to Boaz's field, and basically it mixes a number of themes in the scripture so far. The theme of not gleaning the harvest, not harvesting all the way to the edge of the field, not going over it a second time. That is leaving some of the crop for the poor and the needy.
Yeah, and the sojourner.
Yeah, the sojourner. So that is embedded in this, and it's obvious that Boaz has instructed his men to do that. And at the same time, it brings together the idea of someone redeeming Ruth and her husband. So these two things are at play together. Naomi understands this and sends Ruth to glean in Boaz's field, and it catches Boaz's attention.
Yeah. It seems like Naomi is a good judge of character too. That she knows that going to Boaz's field is a place where you're not going to get assaulted. As much as it's a worthy man of the clan of Elimelech, of Naomi's husband, it's also just like, this is a safe place. You're not going to get hurt here.
Yep. I think it's interesting. Boaz, verse 4, chapter 2, he comes to the reapers and says, "May the Lord be with you." And he says, and may God, they say, "May God bless you." And he says, "By the way, who's this young woman? Whose young woman is this?" Which is going to point out there's an age difference.
Yeah.
Boaz is considerably older than Ruth, and of course they
Do you
say,
happen to know the age difference?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't think it is evident here. It's evident that there is an age difference because later on Boaz is going to offer a younger kinsman the opportunity to redeem Ruth, but he refuses.
And, of course, this is in the same time period, maybe shortly after, where Caleb at 85 says, I'm still as strong as I was at the age of 40. So the way aging happened maybe was still a little bit different, even though people were dying at 100, 120. From my understanding, from my studies in the past about this passage, I would say that I've heard that Ruth is about 40 and Boaz is about 80.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's true, and there's nothing in the text that genuinely declares that. Just Ruth was married for 10 years. Probably she wasn't getting married before 16.
Well, she could have been. So she could be 25 to 30.
Yeah.
But anyway, it doesn't. That's not that great of a deal because it's not that important. It's not important enough for it to be recorded in Scripture.
Yeah.
But there's interesting interaction between Boaz and Ruth, as he must have been stricken by her appearance, and he instructs his reapers to let her have free rein to gain whatever she wants, and she did that, and then he raises it up a level. Verse 8, he says, Listen carefully, my daughter. Interesting, he calls her my daughter already.
Yeah.
Do not go glean in another field. Do not go from this one, but stay here with my maids. He says, now I want you to stay here.
Yeah.
I don't want you going anywhere else, and we'll watch over you. No one's going to hurt you. When you're thirsty, you go to the water jars. Drink from what the servants draw.
Yeah.
An interesting thing, particularly when you think forward about in the New Testament how the Israelites and the Samaritans didn't want to drink from the same containers. And here Boaz says, drink from my well.
Yeah. And even thinking backwards to Moses, a big part of his marriage story is that he is willing to let these women drink from the well, or their sheep drink from the well.
And that's the Isaac and Rebecca. We see that a number of times. The importance of water.
Yeah.
So Ruth finds favor in the eyes of Boaz, and he's found out about her. He knows what's been happening, and verse 11 he says, all that you have done for your mother-in-law after the death of your husband has been fully reported to me. How you left your father and mother in the land of your birth and came to people you did not previously know. He has done his research, and he says, may the Lord reward your work and your wages be full from the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to seek refuge.
Yeah.
So, sometimes our reputation precedes us, and so it was with Ruth, who found favor in his sight.
Now at this point we've seen 4 sentences from Boaz, and pretty much all of them are like, let the Lord bless you, let the Lord be with you, let the Lord repay you for what you've done, for all the good things that you've done for your mother-in-law, let him take you under his wing.
And then he says, at mealtime, he says to Ruth, come here, that you may eat of the bread and dip your piece of bread in the vinegar. He's treating her extremely well. And then he says, she doesn't have to scrounge around. She can take from the sheaves themselves.
Yeah.
So you're prepared to let her have some. Purposely pull out some of the grain from the bundles and leave it that she may glean it. Don't glean it. Don't rebuke her. He is being extremely gracious.
Yeah.
And I think about that part of that certainly is motivation by God putting in his heart to do so, but also the character of Boaz to treat this woman very, very well.
This is interesting to me. We talked about Judges as taking place over 300 plus years. This is taking place over 3+ days. So, we have the 10 years they're living in Moab, but past that, it's just a couple days where, Ruth gleans, she has dinner, she goes back home, she gleans again, has dinner, stays the night, and then they're married, basically.
I like the, she stays the night, but she doesn't sleep with him.
Of course,
She sleeps at his feet.
Mm-hmm.
And she comes and reports to Ruth, I worked with Boaz. And in verse 20 of chapter 2, Naomi says, Naomi, not Mara, may he be blessed of the Lord who has not withdrawn his kindness to the living and to the dead.
Mm-hmm.
Naomi said to her, the man is our relative. He is one of our closest relatives.
Mm-hmm.
But interesting, the kindness to the living and the dead. So part of Boaz's character is the kindness to Elimelech and his sons.
Yeah.
Which is pretty awesome.
That's interesting. Yours says this man is a close relative of ours, one of our closest relatives.
Mm-hmm.
Mine says the man is a close relative of ours, one of our redeemers.
Mm. That actually points much more to what's going to happen here.
Right.
And Boaz, Ruth reports that Boaz has told her to continue to stay there until they finish the harvest. And so they do that. She stayed close by the maids of Boaz in order to glean until the end of the barley harvest and the wheat harvest. And she lived with her mother-in-law.
I guess I missed that. So it's probably not just a couple of days. It's the whole harvest season.
Right.
A couple of months.
They came at the beginning of the harvest. They go through the barley harvest and then the wheat harvest.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to chapter 3, and Naomi says to Ruth, my daughter, shall I not seek security for you, that it may be well with you? Now is not Boaz our kinsman, with whose maid you were? Basically, she is setting the stage for the kinsman redeemer to, in one sense, force his hand to say, and now we're going to say, it's time to make a decision.
Yeah.
So things that we don't really understand, in chapter 3 says, when he lies down, you shall notice the place where he lies. You shall go uncover his feet and then lie down, and then he will tell you what to do.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if this is part of the cultural implementation of the kinsman redeemer. She lays down at her feet, uncovers his feet, and lays there. And eventually Boaz, apparently she comes when he's already asleep.
Yeah.
And he wakes up and goes, whoa, who's that down there?
Yeah, it's interesting because, it definitely shows the intimacy that they feel about feet, not in some weird way.
Yeah.
But just that the feet are this intimate place where if someone is around your feet, if someone's washing your feet, if someone is taking your shoes, like that means something big for them. Because for me personally, first I sleep on a bed and my feet reach the end of it.
Right.
And so if somebody came and I wake up and I see someone lying next to my feet, they're probably on the ground, a couple feet lower than me. I might not notice them immediately, but I also would just think, that's weird. Why are you there?
Right.
I wouldn't think like, oh, this was an intimate thing now.
Yeah.
But Boaz's response is definitely like, whoa. You're going crazy now.
Yeah, but it's more than that. It appears to be almost an invitation to marriage. So Boaz says in verse 10 of chapter 3, may you be blessed of the Lord, my daughter. You have shown your last kindness to be better than the first by not going after young men, whether rich or poor. He understood that her laying there and asking him to put to cover her with a covering, he understood that was saying, I want to be with you. I want you to redeem me.
Okay, so in verse 9, yours says, spread your garment over me.
Spread your covering over your maid.
Okay. Mine says, spread your wings over your servant, for you are a redeemer. And then it has a note. The words for wings can also mean corners of a garment. So, and then it says, compared to chapter 2, verse 12, where Boaz says, a full reward should be given to you by the Lord, that he may cover you with his wings. So it seems like those are similar words, at least. I mean, I'm not looking at the Hebrew or anything, but
right.
According to what the footnotes on my Bible.
And in verse 9, the New American Standard says, so spread your covering over your maid, for you are a close relative, and it has a footnote, redeemer. For you are a redeemer. So that actually points to Boaz's understanding. This is coming to a point where someone's going to have to make a decision. Who's going to redeem Ruth? But then he goes in chapter 12, verse 12. He says, by the way, there's a relative who's closer than I am, so we have to talk to them, and we'll see if he'll redeem you.
It almost feels like Boaz was saying, I was waiting to take action because I'm not allowed to.
Right.
There's someone else who has this responsibility, and I couldn't do it, because why else would he know that there's a closer redeemer?
Yeah.
He's done his research not just in who Naomi is and who Ruth is, but who the other people around are that could be taking this place.
Yep. So she's going to leave, and he's going to reward her when she leaves, in order for him to be able to seek out the closer relative. So things, again, which we don't really understand. He says, verse 13, I will redeem you as the Lord lives. Yeah. So lie down until morning, and in the morning rise up, and before anyone could recognize another, he said, let it not be known that the woman came to the threshing floor. I don't know what that means.
Well, that's where he's sleeping, right? He's sleeping on the threshing floor.
So protecting her reputation, I guess.
Maybe protecting his reputation.
Yep.
Like, hey, I can't be redeeming you if there's someone closer.
And he gives her 6 measures of barley to take in her cloak, and she goes back to Naomi, and said, Boaz has blessed us. And Naomi responds, wait, my daughter, until you know how the matter turns out, for the man will not rest until he has settled it today.
Yeah, I think that's funny. Is I know you're a very pretty woman. He's gonna want to marry you today.
Yep.
Just a funny response. I like it. Boaz says, I will redeem you as the Lord lives. It's just the way that Boaz, it seems like in every thought, in every word, he wants to acknowledge God.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
It's very separate from, chapter 1, verse 1, in the days when the judges ruled. And, reading through Judges, we found out that everyone was doing what was right in their own eyes. Everyone was not following God. And so then it's a refreshing opposite. Boaz saying all the time, may the Lord be with you. May the Lord bless you. May he take you under his wing. And then also just I'm going to do things, and I promise it, and I'm promising it because I'm saying that I'm doing it as surely as I know God lives.
Yep. So then that day, Boaz goes to town. I think 4:1 is really interesting. He went up to the gate, sat down there, and now there's some things which are in kind of included in this. People typically walked by the gate on a daily basis. And so Boaz is sitting there, and the close relative was passing by, and Boaz says, turn aside, friend, sit down here. And he does.
Yeah.
Something important is about to happen, and Boaz, no doubt older than this guy, admonishes him to sit, and he, this other close relative has to know something of importance is going to happen here. He takes 10 of the elders and tells them to sit down, so they sat down. And then he explains the situation. Naomi has come from the land of Moab, and has to sell the piece of land which belonged to her brother Elimelech, to our brother Elimelech. And so I thought to inform you. Buy it before those who are sitting here and before the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, redeem it. If not, tell me, that I may know. For there is no one but you to redeem it, and I am after you.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I will redeem it. He thought, I'm going to get myself a nice field. But then Boaz says, on the day you buy the field from the hand of Naomi, you must also acquire Ruth the Moabitess, the widow of the deceased, in order to raise up the name of the deceased to inheritance. And all of a sudden, the close relative goes, wait, time out. I can't redeem it for myself because I would jeopardize my own inheritance.
Yeah.
The inheritance would be transferred to Elimelech's kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so he says, you do it. You redeem it. You may have my right of redemption, for I cannot redeem it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a funny story because for me it reads as though Boaz is trying to do a trick, as though he's withholding the information about Ruth, like, oh, she's so pretty, I shouldn't tell him that he'll get to marry Ruth. So he doesn't even mention it at first. He says, there's just this land and it needs to be redeemed. Someone needs to buy it. Naomi needs this money. And the guy's like, okay, sure, I'll take extra land. Extra land seems great.
Yeah.
And then Boaz says, oh, sorry, I forgot to mention, you do need to give Elimelech an heir.
Yeah.
And you have to take Ruth.
And then I like what happens next. Okay, you redeem her, and you can marry Ruth. And by the way, I'm going to take off my sandal.
Mm-hmm.
I seem to remember somebody else taking off a sandal and spitting in somebody's face. This issue of taking off a sandal is a way that they test that something is true.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it shows again the intimacy of the way they view feet.
Yeah.
You have to walk around everywhere you go, and so your feet are important. You have to take care of them. And so if somebody's uncovering your feet, they have the chance to totally stop you from being able to ever work again. And if somebody has your shoes, they have that same, you're giving them that same thing. You're saying, I trust you. I'm giving this to you as a promise, saying, if I break this promise, you can cut off my feet. You can cut off my thumbs and my big toes, maybe. Kind of the same way we might do a pinky promise. It's like, the idea is if you break the pinky promise, you get to break your pinky. But it's much worse because it's, much more life impacting.
Yeah.
Not that a broken pinky isn't life impacting, but it's just not as much as your ability to get around.
So, verse 10, interesting language. Boaz says, I have acquired Ruth the Moabitess to be the widow of Mahlon, to be my wife, in order to raise up the name of the deceased in his inheritance. That is, I've acquired. What does yours say?
Mine says, I'll just read from verse 9. Then Boaz said to the elders and all the people, you are witnesses this day that I have bought from the hand of Naomi all that belonged to Elimelech, and all that belonged to Chilion and Mahlon. Also, Ruth the Moabite, the widow of Mahlon, I have bought to be my wife, to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance, that the name of the dead may not be cut off from among his brothers, and from the gate of his native place. You are witnesses this day.
I guess, acquired, and bought aren't that much different. And it harkens back to times when you would pay a dowry for your wife. So Boaz marries Ruth, and then we really fairly quickly come towards the end of the book of Ruth.
So the other person you mentioned who takes someone's sandal and spits in their face, that's Tamar, right? Tamar takes Judah's sandal and spits in his face.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting that those two stories are, that now it's Boaz's, they share sandals with this other redeemer, but then it's immediately mentioned. The elders then bless Ruth May the Lord make the woman who's coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the house of Israel. And may your house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah, because of the offspring that the Lord will give you by this young woman.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting that they're tied together.
yeah.
And of course, if you read through it, Boaz takes Ruth, she becomes his wife, and she conceives, and the women now say to Naomi, "Blessed is the Lord, who has not left you without a redeemer today. May his name become famous in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
May he also be to you a restorer of life and a sustainer of your old age, for your daughter-in-law who loves you and is better to you than 7 sons has given birth to him."
Yeah.
That's just really cool.
Mm-hmm. I just think that it's interesting the comparison. They say your daughter-in-law who loves you is more to you than 7 sons. It's like 7 sons that don't love you, not as good as one, not even a daughter that loves you. Where it's like a flipping of the worth that someone has, where the expectation is, 1 son is always going to be better than 1 daughter, but now 7 sons is not even better than 1 woman who's not your daughter.
Right.
And just the power of that love, of that redemption from Boaz. And I don't know, I think it's speaks, we talked about this with Judges also, but just that it's easy to feel like women aren't that important, or especially a lot of the big names are these men, right? Abraham, Isaac, Jacob.
And yet behind it all, there is this significant role of women.
Mm-hmm.
That whether you have Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah,
Mm-hmm.
Each of them have the wives have significant roles.
Mm-hmm.
Deborah, the judge. So women are not left out of the story.
Yeah, of course. And they have a very important role. Even in these blessings, it is a blessing for Ruth, it seems, but it's a blessing given to Boaz. It seems that Ruth isn't here. Boaz is sitting at the gate.
Right.
The other Redeemer comes and they get 10 elders. So there's 12 of them total. And it seems like it's just the 12 guys, all the people at the gate, and the elders. They give this blessing. And the blessing is, may she be like Rachel and Leah, who built up the house of Israel. May she be like Tamar, who bore Perez. May she act worthily.
Bore Judah.
No.
The house of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah. Oh, okay. I flipped it around.
Tamar had a baby with Judah and named that baby Perez.
And so then we come to the end of the chapter, and it's interesting because of how long it takes for this to come back up.
Mm-hmm.
But she has a son. They name him Obed, the father of Jesse, the father of David. And so we just know there's this guy David who, because we know biblical history, is going to be very important. Yeah. But if you know your biblical history, there's not even a king in Israel yet.
Yeah.
And we know that David's going to become king. We know that Saul is going to be king before him. But it's quite a while.
Yeah.
From the time that Ruth bears David, Obed, until the time that David becomes king. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because it points to the timing of Ruth being written. Of course, it's written after David.
Yes. Sometime
after David. We don't know when, but at least this last part is.
Yeah.
And it could be that the other parts are written and, all the way up to verse
16 or
verse
15.
16, yeah. And, up until that point, that's the whole story they had. And then somebody came in later and said, remember, this is an important story because,
Right.
because it's the line of David.
Yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's unclear. There's nobody, it doesn't say who wrote this, much like all the books we've read so far.
Right.
It doesn't really say who wrote it. We have an idea that Moses wrote the first 5. But even that idea is like, the idea is that Moses wrote it, and then we lost that manuscript and Ezra rewrote it.
Yep.
So, it's just unclear who wrote any of this so far. It's likely to be probably Ezra, but it's interesting to think about. This is a history preserved.
Yeah.
And, for whatever reason, originally they preserved Ruth's history. Maybe just because it was a good story about, a woman who loves her mother-in-law and is, taken under God's wing and the way that God provides for people.
Yep.
And then after that, it's like, wow, God really provides. He provides not just for people, but through Ruth is able to provide for the whole nation of Israel.
Right. Good stuff. Good quick read, and a good reminder of how all of these various laws work together to create, in this case, the line of who's going to become King David.
Yeah. We so often see just the list of laws, and it's hard to see how that works together, but fun to see just somebody who follows the law and follows God, and how it makes something good when you do that.
Right.
And it really brings to fruit God's promise that, like, hey, if you just follow the law, things are going to go well.
Yep.
And that's the case for Boaz.
Exactly. Well, next time we're up at 1 Samuel. Takes a couple hours to read 1 Samuel, so you give yourself time, and we'll see you soon.